Welcome back to Truck Tech, everyone. This week we are thrilled to have one of our favorite people back with us. That is Daniel Barel, the co-founder and CEO of Ree. Ree has a little bit of a different story than many of the folks that we talk about, and not just from a technology standpoint, but being based in Tel Aviv and in Israel. The war there is very, very real. Daniel, thank you for taking time out. Your personal safety matters most to us, but we appreciate you
Thank you.
joining us today. This is a very difficult time, and obviously Israel has known war over the years, but this has been going on. This is touching you personally now, isn't it?
Well, it has. It touches us all. I mean, if October 7th has been a significant event. Here, it's beyond words. I think everybody here knows at least one or two people that have been killed during October, and even on the war after, which is now been going on for a year, more than a year now.
Right.
We've been just today. I've been spending some time of my day in bomb shelters, as in over the weekend during Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish, calendar, with my family for a few hours, and a couple of weeks before, we spent some time bonding in the office in bomb shelters, um, which is interesting because although we were taking shelter in our office bomb shelter, there were at least a couple of guys that have continued to do their Zoom calls from the bomb shelter, um, and a couple of others continue working on the laptops for the 15, 20 minutes that we've been there. Um, but it's very difficult to articulate, to be honest, how um, I'm lost for words a little bit, how complicated this situation is, and how is it to run a business during long wartime. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but as for Ree, we've been hitting our milestones. We've been making strong progress. We have a lot to talk about today, and we've been doing this in spite the fact that a big portion of our company, although not the majority of it, is in Israel. The
Mhm.
majority of our workforce is actually outside of Israel, and the manufacturing is in the US, as you know, partly in the UK and the US, but there's a rather significant team here in Israel, and the HQ sits in Israel.
Well, I think you told me the last time we talked, which I know has been 6 or 8 months ago, on Truck Tech, you told me that you actually had some people, I believe, who were called up for reserves or were going to be called up. And I
Yeah.
guess I don't want to dwell or spend our entire time on this, but I want to ask one last question, and that is the impacts that it has had on the business, both from a personnel standpoint and a personal standpoint. Maybe you could just summarize that, and then we'll move on to some pretty exciting updates about the company.
Yeah, on the business side, there has not been an effect because we were able to divert resources and assignments, and to balance the workload. So there's been business continuity throughout, and we have not had, I think, a single day that the business, slowed down even. On a personal level, oh man, this is different. People have been called for their second and third tours during the war. It's been taking its toll, and we've unfortunately, we've all had our shares of war. There've been way too many wars here in the region. Some might say it's a rough neighborhood, but this recent one has a significant different personal toll on all of us. I don't think any of us is the same.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I will just tell you that it's more than just newspapers and wires that we read here, but we certainly are with you. And as we transition away from that to
Thank you.
hopefully a little better news, especially for you. And I wanted to bring you on, Daniel, because we've talked a lot over time, you and I, and me and others, really, about companies that were sort of boosted or born during the times of the SPAC, the Special Purpose Acquisition Company. You had backing there. You also had some questionable and tough days. Now, from all indications, from announcements you've made in recent months, you've turned a corner. No pun intended, but it's a pun, right? The Ree corner right there. If you would just sort of bring us up to speed, so many things have happened that I would say puts you right on path to full production, or at least scaling production next year.
Correct. Absolutely. So I think going back to the days of the SPAC, you know, back in 2021 when we went public, that was the only path to raise money. So for better or for worse, a lot of companies have taken advantage of that specific vehicle and became public, some of which probably should not have gone public to begin with, but they've raised money. And definitely because of the, I think it's called now the SPAC attack and the vast number of companies that joined the market, there have been quite a few disappointments. Nonetheless, I think that since we went public, we kept on being very, very clear with our investors and customers on two very, very important points. One is the fact that we're very disciplined and we tend to underpromise and overdeliver. And second is that the fact that we want to be very clear in describing our goals. And we kept on laying down our goals in front of everybody. And when we became public, we said, first goal is to validate the tech. And you saw a lot of validation by different names, like back in the day, like Hino and others that have validated the tech and said that it works. And then we said, okay, next phase would be the ability to certify it, because nobody's ever been able to certify by-wire technology. Now, everybody's talking about by-wire or the more common name, software-defined vehicle. And every OEM out there is trying to get to a software-defined vehicle, right? We saw VW and Rivian on one hand, and we saw BMW with a recall a week ago on by-wire braking, as an example. But everybody's trying to do by-wire. And I said to everybody, guys, the next goal would be to be able to certify, to meet all this criteria, because it's not that easy, naturally. And earlier this year, we reached that milestone and we certified that we had FMVSS carbon EPA certification for our technology, first ever in the world.
At this point,
And
I have to get you to, because I've got to the point where I kind of understand it now, but we need you every time we talk. We've got to explain in layman terms by wire. It's
correct, you're right.
Let's do it. You can do it probably quickly, I'm sure.
So by wire means that a computer or an array of computer, what we call ECUs, runs the vehicle and not mechanical connections. So in today's vehicles, in all of them, basically, almost all of them, for example, the steering wheel that we hold is connected mechanically through a rod to the wheels. And by turning it, there might be power and steering, etc. But there is a direct connection between that, our hands basically, and the wheels themselves. And we literally turn them mechanically. Brakes are the same, and so on and so forth. And it's been like that forever. The problem with that is that it has a lot of limitation, mainly around changing dimensions, mainly around efficiencies, because we reached to the point where computers can run faster, calculation faster than us, more accurately than us, and therefore becoming safer. But the ability to do that today is very complicated, because if you think about it, there is something called a by-wire car for years. It's a remote control car, right? You just move it and it moves. But there's what the industry called, there's no redundancies. Think about an airplane. The by-wire basically started by an airplane. Back in the day, the helm, the joystick, used to be mechanically connected through cables to the flaps. In today airplanes, there is a computer and an array of actuators, motors that move the flaps. But what happens, God forbid, if you're flying across the ocean and one of your engines shuts down or breaks? The airplane built with enough redundancies to be able to fly only with one motor and to be able to operate different hydraulics, etc. When it comes to vehicles, it's even more complicated. Why? Because airplanes cost hundreds, if not tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. They're being operated by very highly skilled people called pilots. And even when the pilot is encountering some kind of problem, there is ground control to help them get through that. When we drive our vehicles, we just want to get from A to B. We're not trained in any mechanical way or any special training to operate a vehicle. So the vehicle needs actually to be far more reliable, and even if there are malfunctions, to be able to operate. And this is where the industry struggles, because when something happens to bywire, as an example, what happens if you lose power to the computers and suddenly you don't have computers? You can't afford the vehicle to stop, or actually, even worse, not to brake or to accelerate, and so on and so forth. So you need to create an array of computers, an array of actuators, motors that are able to control the vehicle in a safe manner, where there is not a single point of failure, there's not a single incident that causes that vehicle to put you in harm's way. And that's by wire. So
Okay.
we've created a technology that we call the X by wire, which means all steer, brake, and drive, that is designed around 6 ECUs, 6 computers that control the entire vehicle. Now think about it. In today's regular car, you have tens, if not more than 100 small computers that run everything from your power windows to your steering wheel to your air conditioning. We decided to aggregate them all and use only 6. But those 6 are built differently, far stronger, far more reliable, far better. So for example, you mentioned we have corners, so we put all those in the corners of the vehicle where the wheels are. And if one corner doesn't work, the other 3
Sure.
can take over the vehicle itself. Even if 2 doesn't work, the other 2 can compensate. And we have all the redundancies to be able to be allowed to go on the road, which is called a certification. We can meet all the regulatory and safety requirements to allow us to go on the road.
So a few weeks ago, I sat down in Germany with Andreas Gorbach, who is the head of technology at Daimler Truck, and we talked about some of these very things. This software-defined vehicle, as you put it, this is sort of the next thing for Daimler and others, I'm sure, but it feels like it's a little farther out. I think part of the reason I enjoy bringing you on is because you're really close to getting this done. I've been in your the P7, I believe. I think I have.
You
And
have.
obviously you've got, real companies that are, signing on now, both for testing and I presume for production units soon enough. But I guess the idea being that it's really, at least in one sense, it's here. It's not coming. You can do it. You proved it, or you're proving it now. So let's talk about some of these milestones. Obviously, the first one, and it was the certification that was earlier on, and I think maybe we talked about it at the time. But now I can think of a number of things that have happened, but maybe you want to take them in the best order that you prefer.
So, yeah, thanks. I mean, after certifying, which is the last bit of proving the puzzle, then you got a company, us, with a validated, reliable, and certified technology. That's great. And as you mentioned, it created a lot of interest with a lot of fleets like Penske, U-Haul, even Airbus that we work with airplanes, and others that have started working with us and put initial orders and growing our order book significantly quarter over quarter. That's even greater. But then, every time there's a new challenge, it is the biggest challenge, but it's like every time you shatter a bottleneck, there's another one after, right? So, but the biggest challenge now, which is what basically killed, I think, almost everybody else in the industry, and that's known, is what I think Elon called it production hell,
Mhm.
is when you got all that great stuff and now you have to produce and scale up. This is a major challenge. It's a major challenge because of 3 reasons. One, as a new young company, it's very difficult to have a stable supply chain because you have to start small. The suppliers don't have long-term relationship with you, so you're always fighting an uphill
And
battle.
you're going to pay more. You're going to
That's
pay
second.
more. Yeah.
Second is unit economics. You
Yeah.
don't have economics of scale. You have to grow to that point. So, back in the day, you could open, a supermarket, and then you got like a couple, and then you got a chain, and then one day you're Costco. That's great. But that's old economy. Sorry for that, but that's the truth. Today it doesn't work that way. You can't scale that. And you have to get the economics of scale. Otherwise, you'll be sending vehicles with a shovel to dig your own grave because you'll be losing money on each truck or each vehicle, and you're just digging your own grave faster and faster. The more you produce, the deeper you go.
And we can give you examples of that happening right now.
Yes, sir. And the third thing is the ability to give your customers, mainly fleets, the comfort that they can count on you to scale up because they would be hesitant to scale it up based on a new company if they can't see it through. Because in commercial fleets, when an OEM comes in and it works well, it's usually 10 to 15 years programs at least. And you have to show them the ability to scale. So we understood that and we saw all of our peers, hitting that wall. And we chose, it's easy to say retrospectively after we announced, but we chose to leapfrog that production. We said, maybe we just leapfrog that. And how do you do that? You partner with a 800-pound gorilla that has the scale, the capacity, and the stability to do it for you. And that's what I think we announced a month ago. We
With
partner with a
Fontaine.
company called Motherson. Yeah.
Oh, right. Motherson, yes, first. Okay, yeah.
We
Motherson
co-
probably goes first. And I'm not familiar with them. I don't know how many of our viewers are because they're India based. Is that correct? Are they
they're global now. They they
right?
they have more than 400 plants in 44 countries around the world. They're just under 200,000 employees. They're one of the world's largest tier ones. They're BMW largest supplier, as an
Okay.
example.
Okay.
They're
Uh-huh.
huge. And the relationship with them is that they're taking our entire supply chain. They're going to manage the supply chain and manage our production because this is what they do best. And that's how we get the economics of scale of a company of almost $20 billion in revenue and 80 billion or something in backlog. That's how you get the payment terms, the unit economics. And that's what gives our customers, and we know it for a fact because that's the feedback we've been getting. The customers now are far more comfortable counting on us to scale up.
Right.
Now,
Right.
in addition to that, we also announced that we've nominated Roush out of Detroit to assemble the full vehicle in America for us.
Mhm.
So the corners, the rear corners, the bywire is going to be manufactured in the UK in our plant there. We have ample capacity shipped into the US, where everything is going to be assembled into the P7 truck that you've been in by Roush. Roush is a renowned contract manufacturer in America. They work with everybody, and we kicked off the production there earlier this year, and we're hoping to roll out the first truck by this year from
So
the
I,
line.
I misspoke a moment ago about Fontaine. That's another big name in contract manufacture. But I misspoke about that. But Roush, of course, being in the Detroit area, especially, and I think is that where you're going to have this done? Will be in the in their Detroit operation or elsewhere?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. So
absolutely.
what I need to ask though, at one point you talked about doing some pre-assembly at least in Austin. Is that still on, or have you pushed that aside now?
That's going to be in the next phase when we want to bring the UK capacity into America. So when we're going to run out of capacity for the corners in the UK, we're
Mhm.
going to move it or add more in America.
And you have that property or whatever in Austin set
Correct.
aside for that. Okay, so
Yes.
that's
We're,
just
we're
a
building everything we need so we can. And Alan, I think this is one of the key things that characterize us is we grow with the demand.
Hmm.
We don't believe in if you build it, they will come.
Right.
It was a great movie. Actually, not sure it was a great movie. It was a movie,
It's a
but
good movie.
it's a yeah, and but it doesn't work in real life. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's more important for us to be able to ramp up with the demand
Right.
and not to allocate too much capex and opex and expenses and then have inventory laying down. So we make zero trucks for inventory.
Right, right. Well, it's sort of the epitome of asset light, really. I mean,
Correct.
everything is sort of, as you say, on a true on-demand schedule. You've also raised some money, which is interesting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Our time actually is already getting short, but why don't you bring us up to speed on where you are with the capital raising?
So, like 4 months ago, 5 months ago, analysts and investor asked me during one of our calls, "What's missing for you to take off?" And I said two things. We need, we will not go into production without the working capital secured to see it through. We're not going to start and then, like Tarzan, leap from one branch and hoping to catch the other because that's not a good recipe for success. Um, I believe. And second is we need the production cap- ramp up capacity. So we talked about the production ramp up capacity, and alongside with that, we also announced a $45 million raise that, very interestingly, we've done without any bank. We did it ourselves, led by our largest investor, which is M&G, which is a half a trillion aroundish, half a trillion of dollars of asset under management, who continues to increase their share with us, and they're a shareholder in many automotive company, including Motherson, by the way. And that capital, I believe, would be probably the last dilutive money we will be raising in the future, in the near future. We simply, it secures our needs to execute our plan and go to production. Now we can not only kick off production, but we can see it through. And
Hmm.
that's super important for our customers because they're not interested in us building a few tens or a few hundreds of trucks. They want us to scale up because they're counting on us, right? It's important.
Well, you've got, I guess we have to sort of wrap it up. I mean, I think you've hit most of the high points of the last 6, 8 months since we talked. And it's interesting to see. I mean, I know that there are, big names out there that you mentioned a few that are actually waiting now and either have placed orders or are in your order book. Your order book is where? But what is the state of your order book right now?
So we just reported last month in our earning call that our order book continues to grow. It grew 15% more, now reaching $60 million, where most of the industry is actually slowing down.
Hmm.
So the demand in most EVs is actually slowing down, and us, we continue to grow. And I just saw somebody sent me a cool picture somebody put on, I think on Reddit or something, of the demo truck we gave to Penske, somewhere driving, I don't know even where.
Hmm.
And I saw a different truck of us at um, a university, I think, in America somewhere. And somebody sent me a couple of our trucks in the West Coast, and you started to see them running there. And it's very
Yeah.
interesting that
Well,
people posted because it doesn't have the real logo. There's no OEM logo on it.
mhm. Will there be, by the way, these will be Ree trucks or will these be Penske trucks and JB Hunt and
Exactly.
it,
It's we want to be the Intel inside for
okay.
automotive.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so I understand that. I'm going to ask you to do it as quick as you can. When we met in Indiana, now that that's the last time we were together at the Work Truck Show, you said this P7 is essentially autonomy ready, level 4, level 5, which would get to cognitive, and that's a bit much. Let me just ask it this way: when do you expect, or are you already working on an autonomous version of the Re platform?
Well, as I've always said, we under promise and over deliver. There is a P7 truck, which is the only truck in the world that is allowed, not only allowed, is actually driving autonomously on airports in Europe,
Ah,
run by Airbus. So you have a program with Airbus where they're running RP7 with their autonomous algorithm later on in order to be adopted into their airplanes, into the A350, which is massive. It's a different market for it, etc. And our truck, Airbus, I think a few weeks ago published the first ever fully autonomous vehicle driving on a tarmac and on a runway next to airplanes. Because think about it, the cost of hitting an airplane, damaging an airplane is tens of millions of dollars, if not more, and it's catastrophic. It's not just you dent something, and it's very hectic. It's very busy airport in France, and we're the only one doing it.
hmm. Well, we're going to leave it there. This is great. I am always excited when we get a chance to catch up because you're
Me
out there
too.
doing stuff that no one else is doing. And I would argue, as we talked about in the very beginning, under stress that no one can imagine. Daniel, our thoughts continue to be with you. Thanks very much for coming
Thank
on
you.
today. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to be back again with a new show next week, and we hope you'll join us then. Thanks to Daniel Barel for bringing us both an update on a tragedy unfolding before our eyes in the world, as well as an exciting business that is growing and reaching maturity. Thanks for watching. We see you next time.